What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Tune in to Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD, and join the conversation about how to heal our broken system to reverse our current health crisis. The entire world is looking for answers, and the truth is hidden in plain sight. Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time, with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, when you can call in and ask the questions that matter most to you.
We're live.
And good afternoon. I'm Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and this is Awakened Wellness. We're going on a mind-expanding adventure into wellness and disease prevention today. Today, we are focused, and it's July 28th. We're live today. We're focused on aging and how to reverse it. So we're going to talk about aging and the myths that are associated with aging, and give you some tips as to how you can start reversing father time and find the fountain of youth, because it's been now scientifically proven that we can. So we're here live on Dream Vision 7 Radio. Our phone number here is area code 646-558-8656. And we'd love to hear from you. Our meeting ID is 883-695-3587. And as always, just hit *9 to raise your hand and ask a question. We would love to hear from you. Any questions, any comments? Every question is important and deserves time. So I would love to hear from anyone who's interested in what we're talking about today. And so, what is aging, right? So before we talk about any topic and, how we can reverse it, we have to understand first, well, what is it? What are we talking about, right? And so there are a lot of assumptions about aging and what it actually is. So that we want to tackle first by defining aging, like what is it? And if we look at aging, we make the assumption that it's the passage of time, and that as time goes by, that we get older because our clocks tell us we're getting older. The calendar keeps telling us we're getting older. We have all these systems in place to tell us we're getting older and older. And so we start to kind of buy into that, right? And we have society telling us that we're getting older. We have, physicians telling us that we're getting sick because we're getting older. And so we start to associate these things with aging. But if we look at what aging actually is, it really doesn't have much to do with the passage of time, and has a lot to do with stress. When we look at aging and, how long are we supposed to live as a species, right? So species have average lifespans. A mouse obviously has a much shorter lifespan than a human. A parrot has a fairly extensive lifespan as compared to a mouse. So we have these kind of built-in concepts as to how long species are supposed to live for. If we look at the human species, or what is called the modern anatomical human that evolved about 200,000 years ago, if we look at our genetic code, we can see that it hasn't changed at all in 200,000 years. Like nothing has changed. And it takes, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years to change actual genetic code in the structure and function of any body, any species. And so we know how long we're supposed to live, right? If we look at our chromosomes and our genes, they tell us how long we're supposed to live. And the number that we're getting right now is 120 years. We call that the Hayflick limit. And it's based on how many times our cells divide in a natural lifespan and how often they need to be replaced. And that gives us the idea that we're supposed to be living about 120 years. And if we look around, like nobody's doing that, right? Nobody lives 120 years. And so we have to ask ourselves, do we really understand what aging is? Or are we misunderstanding something? So we're supposed to live to be about 120. And of course, there's debate in ancient traditions, ancient theological texts as to whether or not we lived even longer prior to this time. And so what is aging, right? Aging is stress, really, so everything boils down to stress. I'm sure you guys have noticed the pattern with my podcasts. Aging, the way that we age on planet Earth, and in particular in the United States of America, is not normal. And so that's what we want to discuss today. Like, how do we reverse this trend, right? We're not aging properly here. We are aging in a very, dysfunctional way. And we assume that aging is passage of time, right? And science is actually showing us that time is extremely relative, right? If we are up in an airplane or in outer space, time goes by a lot differently than if we're on the planet. And so we're beginning to understand that time is this kind of weird relative thing that's not absolute like we think it is, right? So we created clocks, we created calendars, we did these things based on how the earth rotates and how we go around the sun, et cetera. But we're finding out that time isn't what we think time is. And so if we associate aging with the passage of time, we're a little bit off base. But if we associate aging with stress, we might be a little bit more accurate in our definition of aging. And so what is stress is the next question, right? So we're supposed to live 120 years. We're not doing that, right? The average life expectancy roughly in the United States is somewhere around 75 to 76 years, a far cry from 120. And in fact, really nowhere on the planet are people averaging 120 years of lifespan. So again, we have to ask ourselves, what's happening? We have this data that tells us we're 50 years short of how long we're supposed to live. And if we really analyze the question, we see that it's boiling down to stress. So I think we had a question come in. Let me take a look. Great. Is my heritage or DNA set so I can't help but look older than I am? My mom looked a lot older than she actually was. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. Again, heritage is not what we think it is. And again, our genes tell us that we should live 120 years. And so it's not genetic. This idea of aging is not genetic, right? So it's environmental. If something's not genetic, it has to be environmental. There's really no other choice. It's like flipping a coin. You can't be in between. You either land on heads or you land on tails. So it's either genetic or it's environmental. And so we know it's not genetic. And so what is it? And so it's got to be environmental. So when we talk about hereditary, we're kind of blending genetics and environmental together. And that becomes very confusing ultimately because we don't know how to parse out, what hereditary even really means. Because we inherit how we eat from our parents. We inherit our sleeping habits from our parents. We inherit a lot of our environmental influences from our parents, so we share a house with our parents for up to, 20% of our lives or more sometimes. And so we're sharing space, air, chemicals, toxins, and we're also sharing good things, right? We're sharing love and trust and bonding and, hopefully healthy food and healthy habits as well. But we're still sharing things that probably we shouldn't share. And so we're associating that with genetics, but it's not, it's hereditary because we inherit our behaviors oftentimes from our parents. And so aging is not hereditary per se, although if you learn habits that cause rapid aging from your parents, you will age rapidly. So I hope that answers the question, but people look older than they do because stress has impacted them more than what is considered to be normal. So usually if you go back and you speak to people who are aging rapidly, they will identify points in time in their lives where they had excessive stress, where they had, months and months, if not years, of stressful events occurring, whether it's as a normal part of their lives or a turbulent time, a death of a loved one, or a significant life change like a divorce or a chronic disease, that can cause rapid aging as well. And so the bottom line always comes down to supply demand. What is the demand? The demand is related to stress. So the more stress you have, the more demand you're placing on your body, and the more demand you're placing on your genes. So again, that doesn't mean it's genetic. It means it's epigenetic or environmental. So you're placing a lot of environmental stress on your genes. And when you do that, your cells have to reproduce themselves at a much faster pace to keep up with the demand. And so if your cells divide more than they're supposed to because they're running through their lifespan too quickly, then what's going to happen is you're going to reach the limit of how many times they can divide. And then you're not going to be able to use that cell anymore. It's going to have to be replaced. And if that goes on for too long, or if it happens too quickly, that's where the body can't meet the demand. And so now you have a supply shortage for a high demand. And so you have this supply demand mismatch. So in other words, you're spending more than you're making. And if you're spending more than you're making, you're going to be in a financial deficit. If you're in a, quote unquote, financial deficit on a metabolic scale inside the body, you're going to age, rapidly. And that's the issue that people face. And so how do we know what this Hayflick limit is? Like, what is it? So if we look at our genes and the chromosomes that our genes are on, so inside of every cell, inside the nucleus, very well protected inside the nucleus is our genetic code. So we have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and they house all of the genes that code for our structure and function. Our structure mostly, and our major functions. And that needs to be reproduced when your cells divide. And your cells divide normally, that's what they do. And so, we're born, our cells are here, and we're constantly turning our cells over and replacing them with new cells, but they're dividing in the meanwhile to keep themselves kind of fresh. So they're dividing into two cells, and then the old cell dies off, leaves the new cell there to replace it. And then when that kind of runs out of steam, if you're not replacing those cells properly, you're going to age. And so people often relate aging to how I look on the outside, right? Do I have wrinkles? Do I have dry skin? And that's what we relate to aging, but aging is an inside process. And so it really depends on how you look on the inside and not so much on the outside. The outside is the effect of what's going on the inside. So you're going to reflect on the exterior of yourself, what's happening on the interior of yourself. And so if your cells are aging rapidly on the inside, right, because you're not meeting the demands, then that's going to reflect on the skin. The skin is actually a reflection of your metabolism in many ways, right? In Chinese medicine, the skin is the external manifestation of what is called the lung in Chinese medicine. The lung is what defends us against infection. It's responsible for a lot of our immunity. Of course, in our regular medical model and regular anatomy, we know the lung to be where we take in our oxygen, and there are defenses to protect things from getting into our lungs that don't belong in our lungs. But in Chinese medicine, there's an extension of the lung, and it's the skin. And so if your lungs are not healthy, your skin won't be healthy, either. And if your metabolism is not there to support your lungs. So in Chinese medicine, what we call the spleen qi supports lung qi. And spleen qi is our metabolism. It's how we make and use our energy. And if that's not there, if that's not secure, then our lung qi is not there. If our lung qi is not there, that means our immunity isn't there either. And then our skin is going to show that wear and tear. And so a lot of people think, well, let me go get some Botox and let me go get some fillers and maybe even do some plastic surgery. And You know, and then of course, a couple years later, they need more, right? And Botox, you have to go in every month, right? And because it's really an inside job, it's not an outside job. So if people really want to look younger, they have to take care of their insides so that their outsides will reflect what their insides look like, because you can't possibly operate on every, you know, part of your skin and keep tightening it and removing all the laxity and things like that. So ultimately, we have to take care of the inside, and that's about the only way this is going to work. Okay, I think there's another question. Oh, we just literally talked about that a little bit. So here's the question. Using injections of filler and Botox has given me a lift, a more youthful look, but it wears off. I literally just said that. That's so funny. Does this hurt me or speed up my aging? Well, Botox in particular is botulinum toxin. So it's a poison, right? Now it's a natural poison that's found in nature. So it's not an artificial poison per se. But the way that it works is it paralyzes the muscles. And when the muscles are paralyzed, they give the appearance of stretching the skin. And so that gives the appearance of reducing wrinkles, right? But the reason it wears off is because your body doesn't like toxins in it. It's going to work very vigorously to get rid of the toxin. And then, of course, when it gets rid of the toxin, the effect will go away. And then secondly, if the skin that overlies the muscle that's being paralyzed to give that youthful effect is not healthy, you know, it will then just continue the process of aging despite the Botox. And so that's where, you know, fillers and Botox and things like that don't necessarily help. Yes, they will give you a temporary, you know, look. So if you're going to a wedding or, you know, you have a special event and you want to change your appearance to a much more youthful appearance, then that will give you a temporary effect. You know, and Botox has been on the market for quite some time. You know, and it doesn't have any like massive side effects associated with it that we've identified. But if we go back to Chinese medicine and metabolism and you know, just looking at things from a common sense perspective, it can't be healthy to keep injecting something that is identified by your body as a toxin into your face. And also the face in Chinese medicine represents your entire body. And so depending on where you're having the injections, you're not just putting toxin in this, you know, space locally, you're also affecting where the meridian carries the energy, right? So the face represents the entire body, right? So the large intestine can be represented in the forehead. The stomach is represented along the jawline. The large intestine is also represented, you know, lateral to the nose, up to the upper lip. The liver is represented on the face. The lung is represented on the face. So pretty much every organ system and every acupuncture meridian is represented by the face. And so wherever you're injecting artificial, unnatural products, you're actually affecting the organ system from a Chinese medicine perspective as well. And it's not a local effect like we think it is really a generalized effect. And so for that reason, I don't highly recommend Botox or fillers because of that. You know, Chinese medicine teaches us so much that our allopathic model doesn't really understand, right? Our entire body is connected. We only have one body. And so whatever we do to any part of our body affects our entire body for the most part, you know, generally speaking. And so, yeah, that's my take on Botox and fillers. So perfect. I think those are the questions we have for now. So looks like it's time for our first commercial break. Thank you for those questions. They're always really great questions and I appreciate them very much. You're listening to Awakened Wellness. I'm Dr. Mylaine Riobe. We're live here on Dream Vision 7 Radio. I thank you for listening and we're going to go to a commercial break. And when we come back, we'll talk about some of the things you can start to do to reverse aging. Thank you.
happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed. Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, when you can call in and ask Dr. Mylaine the questions that matter most to you. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit RIOBE-integrativemedicine.com. Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you in for this dynamic, forward-thinking show.
Join Dr. Bernie Siegel on Mind Health Matters every Thursday and Friday, 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Bernie will draw from his inspirational personal journey, offering us special nuggets of his sacred wisdom weaved through his delightful stories. Listen in as Bernie reminds us to be fully engaged in life.
Ever wonder what it's like to have your own radio show? Well, wonder no longer, because you can dip into the radio airwaves by being host for the day on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. It's a fabulous way to get your radio feet wet. It's an opportunity to market your business, modality, or book. Have a guest, mention a sponsor, and take callers. Or you may want to facilitate a lesson by going solo. It's up to you. Listeners can be online, mobile, in cars with Bluetooth, or listen through Amazon's Echo by asking, Alexa, play Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. For more details, go to dreamvision7radio.com and click on Host for the Day.
Looking for a fun and relaxing getaway? Omega Rest and Rejuvenation Retreats are a great way to unwind and renew your spirit. Sit and read in the garden, explore the woodland trails, or try a daily yoga or meditation class. You can stretch your body, quiet your mind, and do as much or as little as you choose. Located in Rhinebeck, New York, just 90 miles north of New York City, Omega's natural environment and quiet pace allow for extraordinary experiences to unfold. Learn more at eomega.org.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids children's book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love Song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we're back.
Thank you, Rachel. We're back here on Awakened Wellness. I am Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and we are live on Dream Vision 7 Radio. Today, we're talking about aging. What is it, and how can we reverse it? And so another great question came in during the break. I recently lost a lot of weight, and now I'm looking like a prune. Wrinkles appeared almost overnight. In essence, I'm looking older than I am. Can you suggest something I can do to help? So it depends on where the wrinkles are. So if it's, so a lot of people sometimes if they're overweight, in particular in their bellies, once they lose a lot of weight, they have kind of like redundant, skin folds and things like that. And there's really not a lot that can be done for that except surgery and to have the redundant skin, removed. Wrinkles on the face, again, there's no short-term solution. I mean, yes, you can do Botox. You can also have surgery on the face, but I'm personally very conservative. It doesn't mean I never recommend surgery to clients, but I think people need to be very well informed before they have surgery. And before I would recommend surgery to have a facelift or other procedures, I would more likely recommend before that to prepare, right? So you want to be metabolically sound when you walk into any surgical procedure, making sure you're on the right supplements, making sure if you have hormone imbalances, that those are corrected. If you have, an excessive load of toxins in the body, that those are safely removed. You want the body on the inside to be healthy before you have surgery. So that way your surgery will stick, right? It will have more lasting impact. If you're healthier when you have the surgery, you recover faster and you don't lose the gains that you've made from the procedure. And so I'm not completely anti-surgery, but at the same time, I'm very pro preparation for surgery. You don't want to walk into that blind, but that is an option. You can have surgery. Things that don't work as quickly, so people often complain, well, I had these natural procedures and they don't have the same effect as the Botox and the fillers. And no, they don't, because again, the Botox and the fillers are toxins. They're going to stick around a lot longer doing what they do than something natural that your body is just going to process quickly. But there are certain things that you can do. Now, the problem with natural agents is they take a lot longer to take effect. So you can do stem cell injections in your face, but the effects take about 3 to 6 months to see. So there's nothing really terribly immediate that you can do that's natural, at least not yet. You can do also injections of hyaluronic acid, which is a natural product. And you can also do injections of what's called PRP, or it's basically the plasma from spinning down platelets in the blood. And you can inject that as well. So there are a few different things you can do. The hyaluronic acid has a quicker result. So in about a month, you'll see that result. The PRP you might see around that same time frame. The stem cells, again, they take about 3 to 6 months to see the impact from them. But what's good about stem cells is they're kind of the gift that keep on giving. That's the beauty of stem cells. And that's why stem cells are such a hot topic now for reversing aging, is because they literally can reverse aging. And there is a lot of scientific data just pouring out right now to confirm that we can, in fact, reverse aging. And it was always thought that that was not possible, but now we know it actually is. Now, can you reverse aging by decades? No, but you can reverse aging significantly by several years. And there are tests that you can do to see what your actual, biological age is. So we all know what our calendar age is, right? We know our birthday, the day, the year, the time we were born, and, fast forward to today, and that gives us a number of age that we accept as our age, right? The government accepts it. We use it on our taxes. We use it on our identifications, but is that really aging? And that question's up for debate now, because time is relative, and we're also getting scientific data that tells us we can actually reverse our age. And so when we look at the genes that are inside of our nucleus, they have ends to them that it almost looks like shoelace tips, the plastic that's around the ends of shoelaces. We call those telomeres or telomeres, depending on how you want to pronounce them. And each time your cell has to divide, the telomere gets a little bit shorter and shorter because it shortens as a result of cellular division. And again, remember that your cells divide because you always need to recycle and regenerate your body, right? So our body is incessantly recycling itself by reproducing itself. We want to make sure it doesn't reproduce itself faster than it needs to. And the way that we can determine this is through a test called telomere testing. The most accurate telomere test is actually a blood draw, and then they analyze the cellular environment to give you the length of the telomeres, the average length of your telomeres inside of your immune cells. And that will give you a set point, a starting point. So you can have a telomere length, for example, of, let's say, 7.0 or something like that. And they'll map it out on a graph for you so that you'll see how you compare to the general population. And then you can do interventions, whether you choose to do stem cell therapy or whether you choose to just do diet modification, taking the right supplements, appropriate detoxification, whatever lifestyle things, meditation, get proper sleep, drink enough water, do your breathing techniques. All of those things come into play. And what you do then is you wait about a year and you repeat your telomere test again. And what you should see is that they're getting longer. When they get longer, that means you are getting younger on a metabolic level. And that's going to help support your skin long term. But again, remember, your skin is on the outside of yourself and your body doesn't consider it to be important. So we think it's important, right? Because we want to look as good as we can look. But to the body as a machine that assures your survival, it could care less if you have dry skin. It could care less if you have wrinkles. It could care less about any of those things, as long as you're alive, right? As long as you're breathing and your heart is beating, your body doesn't really care about much else if it's under stress, if it's having an issue. And so we want to make sure that we give the body everything it needs so that it's not selecting to avoid nourishing our skin, right? And so that's where you can tell using telomeres, am I doing that? Am I succeeding in reversing my aging? And you'll know very quickly within about 2 or 3 weeks, the test results are back. And then the lifestyle interventions, you'll know if they're working. So that's another great way to know, I've been taking great care of myself. Is it working, right? And you can literally reverse your age by several years, is what we're learning through science now. And so that's really exciting. And so that's the best way to tell. So the answer, can we reverse aging? Absolutely. Is it quick? No. Is it easy? No. Unfortunately, it's not. We have a lot to combat in our environment today. Again, 200 different toxins in the average home. In my opinion, most Americans are nutrient depleted, despite what the Centers for Disease Control would want us to think. The Centers for Disease Control quote, 10% of the US population has nutrient deficiencies, but it's not 10%, it's probably 70 or 80%. They're not looking at the right testing. They're using blood work and not cellular-based testing. If they had been using cellular-based testing, they would see that, we are not as healthy as our statistic, or as our blood work will show. And that is coming out in our statistics, right? So if we look at the US lifespan, it's actually been decreasing for the past 2 out of 3 years. And this is long before COVID, right? Everybody assumes that life expectancy shortened during COVID, but this preceded COVID by 2 years. So the shortening of the American lifespan came well before COVID, and COVID will likely accelerate that, unfortunately. And so the statistics, when we look at them, when we compare ourselves to the rest of the world, and even just to ourselves, a few years ago, we're dying sooner than we did 2 and 3 years ago. And so we know that something is wrong with these statistics when they tell us that only 10% of us have nutrient deficits. It's impossible, right? It's not possible. And we have to question where they're getting those statistics. And so I think we had another question. Oh, yes, I did just answer it. Do our telomeres play a part in how youthful we look? Absolutely. Our telomeres tell us pretty much the whole story, right? So if your telomeres, let's say for argument's sake, you're 45, right? And you get a telomere study, and when you look at the length, it tells you that you're 55. So that means biologically, metabolically, on the inside, despite what your birth certificate says, you are 55 years old, not 45 like the calendar tells you. And so not to fear, right? We can reverse it. And so the goal would be to undergo these lifestyle modifications, to eat properly, great hydration, the 4 pillars that we always talk about: breathing, sleeping, exercise, and nutrition. And if you want to do it faster, you enlist the assistance of a board-certified integrative medical doctor. Chinese medicine is also wonderful for anti-aging, in particular on the inside. There are Chinese herbs that are geared towards anti-aging, and when we look at the herbs and what they do, we can actually see that they reverse aging. So with our modern technology, we can analyze Chinese herbs and see what they actually do inside of our cells. And it's very cool to see that herbs that were devised thousands of years ago and are known to have a particular purpose of anti-aging, at least what they defined as anti-aging 3,000-4,000 years ago, actually are anti-aging. And that's always fascinating for me as a practitioner of Chinese medicine, to see that they're always right. They're never wrong. It's amazing. So Chinese medicine, so a doctor of Oriental medicine would be another phenomenal resource for anti-aging to reverse your telomeres. Now, doctors of Oriental medicine can't do testing for you. They can't write prescriptions and such, but they can certainly prescribe herbs. They can diagnose what the underlying cause of your rapid aging is and treat that very specifically with herbs and acupuncture. And those methods are phenomenal. There are anti-aging things you can do in your face. There are body points that you can use that are anti-aging for Chinese medicine. There's a point called stomach 36 that's excellent for anti-aging. Spleen 6, which is around the ankles, just above the ankles on the insides. There's gallbladder 14 on the face. There's governor vessel 20 on top of the forehead. So there are acupuncture points that lift the energy of your body. So it gives you a lift. Of course, not as dramatic as a facelift, but energetically it will give you a lift. It'll also help you feel better, right? Not just look better, but actually feel better. So when you do anti-aging from the inside out, not only do you look better long-term, you feel better as well, and you live longer, you reverse aging. And so it's just a win-win all around, as opposed to getting Botox and fillers and plastic surgery only and having an appearance on the outside of looking youthful. And really, if the skin is not healthy, you can always kind of tell who's having procedures done, and they don't always look youthful, right? You can kind of tell when, at least I guess as a physician, I can tell, but I don't know if other people can tell, but you can always kind of tell when someone's had a procedure done or, isn't really healthy on the inside, but they're trying to force it on the outside. And you want to have both come to the middle. You want the inside, to be there supporting the outside. And then you want the outside, of course, to be supported by the inside. And that creates a cycle, a positive loop cycle in the body that helps. So I hope that answered that question. Having a life partner, does it help with aging as opposed to living alone? Oh, that's an excellent question. Does having a pet help? Absolutely, without question. Having a supportive life partner, right? So we have to qualify the life partner and say, are they supportive or are they causing you more stress, right? So if your life partner is causing you more stress, you're going to have rapid aging with that life partner. If that life partner is supportive, then you're going to slow aging with that life partner, right? Everything is relative. So life partners are also relative. Ultimately, though, it's about you, right? And so you don't have to have a life partner to age properly. It helps, but you don't have to have it, right? Have to have that person in your life, technically, because it's really about you. And what you do to yourself is the most important thing. So, having a spiritual center, having a lifestyle that supports you, having friends that support you, or a community that supports you, all those things are anti-aging, and having a supportive life partner, right? So again, friends are relative too, right? Frenemies, we all talk about frenemies and laugh about frenemies, but it's a real thing, right? If your friends cause you a lot of stress, they're frenemies, they're not friends. And so they're going to age you, not help you be youthful. And so everything's relative. So I hope that that helps as well. And there's a question from last week. I just wanted to make sure I addressed quickly. How do you tell if you have a small bowel infection? So that's extremely important, right? Because if you have a small bowel infection, you can't really do anti-aging from the inside out effectively, because if you have a small bowel infection, you're not going to absorb your food and supplements properly. And so the standard, the gold standard, is what's called a breath test. And it's a test that you do. So there are in-home tests that you can do to diagnose this. They're a little bit tricky. You have to really follow the instructions very carefully in order to have an accurate test result, but they are available. We do them all the time in our practice. And basically you blow into tubes and you set a baseline for yourself, and then you drink a lactulose solution, which is basically a type of sugar. If there are bacteria in your small intestine, in your upper intestine, they will eat the sugar, and then they will release gases as a result of having eaten that sugar. And we can measure those gases in your breath. So what happens is you drink the lactulose, and then every 20 minutes or so for 2 hours, sometimes 3, you'll breathe into the tube. And you do it every 20 minutes because that sugar is moving through your intestines, and we know about the speed at which it should move. And so you can kind of tell where the infection is to some degree based on where, in your timing of checking your breath, we see the gases. So we can kind of tell if it's, in the small intestine or somewhere else, right? So within those two to 3 hours is when the sugar is moving through the small intestine. The small intestine is quite long, so it takes quite a while to get the sugar down and through that. So as the sugar is moving through, if it's being eaten by bacteria because you have an infection, as you blow into the tube at the 20-minute time intervals, we're going to find methane gas and hydrogen gases in your breath, and that would be diagnostic of a small bowel infection. And so I hope that answered the question that you had there. How important is my mind health to aging? Crosswords and mind games, are they helpful? These are great questions. How about happiness and doing fun things? Absolutely. All of that, lifestyle is so important. Playing, right? I have spiritual advisors that are incessantly telling me that I need to play more. Go play, go play, go play, right? And I'm like, but doing research is how I play. Like, no, that doesn't count. You have to go play. And so, I play with my kids, I go out, I do things, but being playful is extremely important because, that brings you a lot of joy, right? And so being happy, and that's, again, having a spiritual center. When you have a spiritual center, you're at peace, you're happy. It doesn't matter to you so much if you have a life partner or don't have a life partner. You will attract the people into your life that need to be in your life that match you where you are, right? So if you are spiritually centered, you will attract other spiritually centered people. They will be supportive because that's what spiritually centered people do, and that will bring you more joy, and that will bring them more joy. And, when two people come together and are joyful, that multiplies the joy, right? And so playing is important. Mind games, concentration games, yeah, that, stimulating, there is such a thing as good stress. You just don't want it to be over the top, right? So keeping your mind stimulated is extremely important, but I think keeping the heart stimulated is more important, right? So we have to distinguish the brain from the mind. The brain is just a physical organ that doesn't really actually think. We think it thinks, but it doesn't actually think. It's just a receiver of data. The data comes from the heart, right? And that goes back to the heart math, breathing that we discussed on a few podcasts. It's your heart that thinks. So your mind is housed in the heart. So the mind is distinctly different than the brain. The mind is everywhere, so it's equivalent to almost the spirit. The mind is in every cell of you. It's in your aura. It's everywhere. And so that's why if we tap into the heart, we can see things before they happen. We can have this intuitive hit, that sixth sense that people talk about is in the heart, and it's because the heart houses the mind. The mind is what thinks. It's not the brain. And so, yes, engaging your mind through the engagement of your heart, through the practice of joy, through the practice of play, and through the practice of perhaps community, whatever it is that brings you joy. If it's volunteering, if it's playing a sport, if it's working out, whatever it is that brings you that joy, that's all anti-aging. So excellent questions. Yeah, I think I got them all. All right, fantastic, wonderful questions. So stem cells, right? How do we reverse aging? So when we look at telomeres, when we want to reverse aging, one of the ways we can do that is through stem cell therapy. And so you can use stem cells in a couple different ways, and you can use it for general wellness as well. So you can actually administer stem cells intravenously through the veins, or you can inject them locally. We inject them locally typically for orthopedic conditions like arthritis of the knee or a shoulder issue. Stem cells work extremely well to reduce inflammation and also to replace worn out cells, right? So that's why stem cells are actually anti-aging, is because they replace the worn out cells that can't replace themselves anymore. So as your cells divide too quickly because they've been under too much stress, and the demand outweighs the supply, you have to fill in the supply, right? Otherwise, you continue to age. And so we fill in the supply in several ways, right? The 4 pillars that we talk about, we fill it up with meditation, we fill it up with everything we just talked about, right? Stimulating the mind, engaging the heart, playing more. That helps to bring the supply up to the demand, right? Stem cells can kind of fill that last little gap that's left there that might be difficult for people to recover. Because stress doesn't stop, right? Just because we decide that we don't want to have stress in our lives doesn't mean stress goes away. It just means that we're going to deal with it differently. We're going to perceive it differently. We're going to do things differently in response to the stress. It doesn't necessarily mean the stress won't be there. It just means we don't want it to affect us the way that it might affect us to cause rapid aging. And so what stem cells are is you can derive them from your own tissues. So your own bone marrow is teeming with stem cells. And what happens to us as we age is our stem cells start to die off. And there's so many things that kill stem cells. It turns out that stem cells are very delicate. And in today's harsh environment, it's very easy to kill them. So our entire body is made of stem cells. So when we were conceived by our parents, when we got to about the 16th cell, and we were, super tiny inside of our mother's, not even in the womb yet, probably, but super, super tiny, we started to make stem cells. And we call stem cells, the God cell, because it can become any cell in the body. So if you put a stem cell in the liver, it will become a liver cell. If you put a stem cell in the heart, it will become a heart cell. If you were to be able to put a stem cell in the brain, it would become a brain cell. So anywhere you put the stem cell, it will read the environment and it will become that cell. And it'll become a brand new cell. It's starting from scratch. And that's the beauty of stem cell therapy. So if your own stem cells are dying, it's hard for the body to recruit the stem cells to help you. And so you can get stem cells from other sources. And so this is a hot topic that is very misunderstood as well. Just make sure we have enough time. Yes. And actually, we do need another commercial break, don't we, Rachel? I think we took our second break. So let's do that really quickly, and we'll talk for the last couple of minutes about stem cells. Thanks for listening. We're live on Dream Vision 7 Radio.
What What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, when you can call in and ask Dr. Mylaine the questions that matter most to you. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit RIOBE integrativemedicine.com. Vision 7 Radio Network invites you in for this dynamic, forward-thinking show.
EDECIA is a U.S. nonprofit dedicated to the dream of ending childhood malnutrition for millions of children around the world through the manufacture of Plumpy Nut and other nutrient-rich, peanut-based, ready-to-use foods. EDECIA has already delivered life and hope to nearly 1 million children in over 26 developing countries. To find out how you can join EDECIA's dream of ending childhood malnutrition, please visit edeciaglobal.org.
What if dreams can diagnose your life? What if we can meet the love of our life in dreams? Join host Kat O'Keefe Canavis, the #1 internationally best-selling author of Dreams That Can Save Your Life, written with Duke University medical doctor Larry Burke. Dreaming Healing is where we'll explore dreams, research, and interpret dreams from you, the caller. Dreaming Healing shows can be heard every Tuesday at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern, with live shows on the first and third evening at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Come live your dreams out loud with Kat.
Are you searching for a way to help create global change? Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's vision is to have an eclectic group of radio hosts dedicated to educating, enlightening, and helping humankind with positive messages and tools that enhance lives using different modalities and programs. If you would like to join our team and help illuminate the universe, call Deborah at 508-226-1723 or Deborah at dreamvision7radio.com. This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we're back.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. So when we left off, we were talking about stem cells, and another good question came in, and that's exactly what I was about to talk about, is where do stem cells come from? From donation or from ourselves? So before the break, we talked about that they can come from ourselves, right? So our own bone marrow is teeming with stem cells. The problem is that there are a lot of things in our environment today that actually kill our stem cells. And it turns out that steroids, for example, prednisone or medications you might take for asthma or lung diseases, kill stem cells. Motrin, Aleve, kill stem cells. Anti-inflammatories kill stem cells. A lot of prescription drugs kill stem cells. Toxins in our environment kill stem cells. And so we tend to run out of stem cells, and that's also what creates aging. And so we can fill in the gaps through getting donation stem cells. So umbilical cord stem cells. So there's the jelly that's around the umbilical cord. So it's not from the blood, it's actually from the jelly around the cord. And there's a lot of controversy and misunderstanding. There's some reverberation there, Rachel. I don't know if we can address that. Yeah, so there's a lot of misunderstanding about stem cells and where they come from, right? So these are not coming from embryos. They are not coming from, unborn babies. They're coming from newborn babies that are healthy, whose mothers agree to allow the jelly around the umbilical cord of the newborn baby to be harvested for stem cells. And it turns out that the amniotic fluid, right, the fluid that babies float in their mother's wombs, teeming with stem cells. The jelly around the umbilical cord is just teeming with stem cells. Because if you think about it, these babies they're growing, right? They're constantly creating new cells because they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's through stem cells that they're doing that. And so once they're born, they have their own stem cells, right? We discard the umbilical cord, we discard the placenta, we discard these things. So they can actually be harvested to create stem cells. And then they are very rigorously tested. So the FDA has a huge laundry list. It's like a blood donation, right? So in order to donate blood, that blood has to be tested very vigorously for infections and problems. And so stem cells undergo that same rigorous analysis before they are used. And the beauty of using brand new stem cells from a newborn baby is they divide so much faster than our own stem cells. They divide up to 40 times faster than our stem cells. And so you can get much faster results using those stem cells than if you use your own, especially if you're taking prescription drugs and problems. So the other issue is you don't want to go run and get stem cells, and meanwhile you're on steroids and taking Motrin every day and for aches and pains and things. So you want to, again, be under the guidance of a board-certified integrative medical doctor who will help you to clean house, to get rid of all the things that are killing your stem cells, so that when you get new stem cells, they don't just die, right? So if they die on impact, you're not going to see the results. So you want to make sure metabolically on the inside always comes down to the inside of the body needing to be as healthy as possible, no matter what it is you want to do. So you want to be under guidance to know that you're doing, the best that you can do to make sure that the procedure you're going to have is going to work, whether it's surgery, stem cell therapy, whatever it is. You want to make sure that the results stick, right? And so stem cells are a great way to fill in that gap for anti-aging. Now, if you use it through an IV, that's not FDA approved. And so it would be what's considered to be an off-label use, just like aspirin is an off-label use for prevention of heart disease, right? Aspirin is not FDA approved for that, but as a physician, I can use it off-label in my better judgment if I believe that would help someone, reduce heart attacks. And so we can do the same with stem cells. We can use them off-label. They are FDA approved. They're just not approved for anti-aging. So again, you have to have a conversation with your doctor so that you know exactly, what you're signing up for, like anything else. But that's just another great tool that functional and integrative medical doctors have in their toolbox to reverse aging. So that's all the time we have for our show today. And thank you so much for listening. As always, I wish you many, many blessings, and we'll see you next week. We'll be live next week. And thanks for these awesome questions. And until next time, thank you so much for listening.
Join us next time on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD, to learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness. Awakened Wellness airs every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time, with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern of each month. Meanwhile, you can join our Facebook page at facebook.com/awakenedwellness and let us know what you'd like to discuss on future episodes. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit riobeintegrativemedicine.com. This show is part of the Dream Vision 7 radio network.
This is Dream Vision 7 radio network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.